He moved like he'd been shot out of a big gun, hair flying around, hips moving, body full of energy. Stevie Wright didn't just perform, he exploded on stage. The smallest guy in the room somehow took up the most space. He'd run across the stage in a crazy way, throw his head back, and let out that special cry, half singing, half screaming, and thousands would go wild in return. In the mid-60s, rock and roll was still finding its sound in Australia, and then came Stevie. When he sang, it sounded like the neighborhoods letting loose, like young people themselves had found a microphone. But the same energy that made him amazing also made him unpredictable. Wright's was a life of big ups and downs, amazing fame, terrible addiction, and long times in the wilderness. He was the sound of Australian rock growing up, and also its first great tragedy. Born in Leeds, England in 1947, Stephen Carlton Wright moved with his family to Australia in the 1950s, landing in the working-class mess of Sydney's western neighborhoods. They settled in Villawood, migrant, hostel, cheap buildings for new arrivals, trying to build a life from nothing. It was rough, but good ground for dreaming. Stevie was restless from the start, drawn to Elvis, Gene, Vincent, and Little Richard. He copied their moves and ate up their records. His voice was rough, desperate, electric with teen anger, and it didn't take long to find similar spirits. In 1964, he met 4 other young migrants at the hostel George Young: Harry Vanda, Snowy Fleet, and Dick DeMondon. They formed a band. They called themselves the Easybeats, and they weren't just good, they were explosive. Within months, Stevie had become the most exciting frontman Australia had ever seen. Not polished, not safe, but thrilling. He'd get crowds into a frenzy with songs like She's So Fine, swaggering across the stage with wild eyes and untamed energy. Their music was punchy, urgent, beat-driven rock with a Sydney edge. By 1965, they were on national TV and radio almost daily. The girls screamed, the boys copied his hair, and every teen in Australia wanted to be Stevie Wright. With each hit, Wedding Ring, Come and See Her, Sorry, the band got tighter, the sound more ambitious, but Stevie's voice always led the charge, a howl of wanting, rebellion, and barely controlled chaos. Then came the song that would change everything. In 1966, the band released Friday on My Mind, a track so perfectly of its time and yet timeless it didn't just climb the charts. It stuck itself in the DNA of an entire generation. The song was pure release. It told the story of surviving the grind of a thankless work week, counting down the days, aching for the weekend. And Stevie didn't just sing it, he lived it. You could hear every factory clock punch, every tired morning, every beer cracked open at 5 p.m. Friday. It hit #1 in Australia, broke the UK top 10, and landed in the US Billboard charts, an unheard of achievement for an Aussie band in the 60s. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, make sure you give it a like and subscribe to remember this if you haven't already. Click the bell icon to stay updated on all of our latest content. The Easybeats had made it. And right barely 20 was suddenly an international star. But fame's rush came with the cost. The band moved to London to chase global fame. But the dreams soon began to fall apart. Their management made mistakes. The industry chewed them up. And internally, tensions simmered. Stevie, once the band's firecracker, was beginning to burn out. George Young and Harry Vanda increasingly took over the songwriting. Stevie, battling sadness, homesickness, and growing drug use, drifted further from the music and the brotherhood that had launched him. By 1969, the Easybeats were finished. Stevie Wright, Australia's first rock and roll superstar, was now alone, lost, 22 years old, washed up, and already running from ghosts. Then, like a lightning strike from a clear sky, Stevie roared, back in 1974 with Evie, a rock opera, in 3 parts that captured the full range of human emotion. Part 1, with its galloping riffs and wild urgency, was classic, Wright, furious, lustful, unstoppable. He howled, "Let your hair hang down." It felt like the second coming. Part 2 slowed into a soulful lament, his voice fragile, trembling with heartbreak as he sang of love lost. And then Part 3, desperate, pleading breakdown, almost unbearably raw. "I'm losing you." The 11-minute epic stunned listeners. Radio stations split it across segments. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece. It went to #1, longest chart-topping single in Australian history. And who helped write and produce it? It's George Young and Harry Vandis, old Easybeats brothers, now the masterminds behind AC/DC, shaping the sound of another generation. George had moved on, but he hadn't forgotten Stevie. In many ways, Evie was their last great collaboration, a final chance to give their fallen comrade a shot at redemption. For a fleeting moment, Stevie was back on top. But behind the scenes, his demons were getting louder. By the late 1970s, Stevie was deep in the grip of drug addiction. The world saw flashes of brilliant, sporadic performances, scattered interviews, but mostly they saw a man slipping away. Desperate, Stevie checked into Chelmsford Private Hospital in Western Sydney. What he didn't know was that he was walking into one of the darkest chapters in Australian medical history. There, under the care of psychiatrist Dr. Harry Bailey, Stevie was subjected to deep sleep therapy, a controversial and now discredited treatment involving drug-induced comas, sometimes lasting up to 2 weeks, combined with heavy doses of electroconvulsive shock therapy. Wright later claimed to have endured over 50 rounds of ECT, most of them while unconscious. He emerged damaged. His memory was shredded, his thinking clouded. His personality, once so electric, was dulled and fragmented. Chelmsford would later become the subject of a royal commission. Dozens of patients died. Right. But what remained was only a broken version of the man who once lit up stages with a single howl. The 1980s were unkind. Stevie became a tabloid fixture. Former star turned junkie headlines splashed across the press. He was caught stealing, hospitalized repeatedly. He was the punchline to stories about burnt-out fame. But even as the public stared, some never stopped listening. In 1982, he released Black-Eyed Bruiser, a record that wore its scars on its sleeve, full of grit, swagger, and bruised defiance. He played when he could. Pubs, clubs, benefits. Then, in 1986, the Easybeats reunited for a national tour. The crowds came in droves. And when Stevie belted out Friday on My Mind, the roar nearly lifted the roof. By the 2000s, Stevie was a regular on the Legends of Rock circuit. His voice was older, rougher, but still his gravelly, unpredictable. But every so often, the old lightning cracked through. In 2005, Stevie Wright was inducted into the ARIA Hall of Fame, long overdue honor for the man who had cracked the ceiling and made the impossible seem doable for every Aussie rocker that came after him. KC, DC, INXS, Jet, Midnight Oil, Day, all stood on the shoulders of Stevie Wright. He accepted the award with humility, shaky but smiling. His voice cracked as he paid tribute to his bandmates and to the fans who had stayed loyal through the storms. It was clear he knew his story was no longer just about music, was about pain, survival, and the cost of being the first to blaze the trail. Stevie Wright died on December 27, 2015, just after his 68th birthday. He'd spent his final years quietly in Maruja on the NSW South Coast, far from the chaos of his earlier life. No paparazzi, no stage lights, just quiet. His death triggered a wave of grief and recognition. Friday on My Mind was played on national news broadcasts, on radio, in backyards. People remembered not just the songs, but the man behind them. A man who had burned brighter and fallen harder than almost anyone. Without Stevie Wright, Australian rock doesn't happen the way it did. There is no "It's a long way to the top." "No need you tonight." "No, are you gonna be my girl?" He kicked down the door and bled on the floor so others could walk through it. He was messy. He was brilliant. He was broken. He was unforgettable. And when he screamed, "Monday, I have Friday on my mind," he wasn't just singing, okay? He was surviving. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you have a favorite Stevie Wright or Easybeats song that you like the most? Or perhaps a moment in his career that you remember the most? Comment us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already done so, click the bell icon to stay updated on all of our latest content.